Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Painting at Home. I am Jean Moss. As you can see on my face today, I had a little fun with makeup, or I should say washable marker, because I watched a very informational program recently called Saturday Night Live, and it featured a tutorial video of how to use Crayola marker as makeup. So I tried it on myself and then I realized it was a joke. Let's get started. Today is a wonderful day, everybody, because we are going to explore the sunset. And what's so fun about a painting of a sunset is it could be a sunset or a sunrise. So let's give it a go today. I'm going to use classic watercolors, and then for another special treat, we're going to jump on back to my glitter crayons. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you joining, welcome and happy Monday. I had just explained that I played a little bit with washable marker on my face. I invite you to give that a try. So today, everybody, what we're going to do is today is about the sunset, or as I said before, it could also be a sunrise. So I'm going to start with just a lovely hillside. I've gotten a little bit of suggestion from a few of my viewers, and a few of you wanted to see a little bit of rolling hills, sunset, and then maybe if we're feeling fancy today, we will absolutely go ahead and maybe try about a little bit of deer or wildlife in this painting. So we're going to start today with just let's see, I'm going to use my glitter crayons, and I'm just going to start right on with my rolling hills. So we're going to jump into this with a little bit of that green, that verde. It's a glittery green color, and it's just wonderful. So I'm going to start just by adding, I think a higher hill today. And this hill, as I say, I'm outlining it with my crayon, are going to have just a little bit of a rolling nature to them, similar to whenever we draw mountains. So I'm going to start with one side, and then I'm going to draw a bigger one. This one's going to go right up at the top here. Look at that, maybe a little bit of a cliffside. Here we go, we're going to draw that all the way down, and it's going to just disappear right in the background. So here is my mountains, right, my rolling hills as they say, so they're not quite as high as mountains, but they are in fact quite high indeed. And then we'll enjoy that sunset sort of in the background, and of course then we'll have our wonderful sky. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this guy off right at the bottom here of the page. Terrific. So now I've drawn out where my hills are going to go. And of course, as always, we have our just absolutely wonderful paint palette here. And I have my iridescent, my glitter, and then also just my regular prime colors. So I'm going to start today. I think I want to play a little bit with texture. So we're going to use our smaller brush. Here we go. So I have my smaller brush, and I'm just going to outline with crayon. Now, those of you who have watched any of my other episodes, you know that when we put paint up against crayon, it creates the most wonderful lines, the most wonderful textures. So we're going to just play and play and play with those textures, and we're going to just draw all the way down. There we go. Oh, and I love that this crayon is just peekabooing right through and giving us a little bit of a howdy-ho. We love that. So I have my wonderful green, my wonderful brown, and we're just going to come right at it. And I'm thinking if there's any deer, maybe some sheep, they'll be right on the sides of these rolling hills. So let me grab a little bit more of that green, a little bit more of that brown, and we're just outlining. And again, you want to make sure that your brush is not too wet. Just a little bit of moisture, and I'm creating a little bit of texture here, if you can see. It's just a small wrist action, just a small wrist action, and we're just going to keep on that all the way down this mountain. It's just going to fall right down the mountain, very similar to a time when I fell down a mountain in a dream I had. I've never actually been to the mountains, and very rarely do I get to see a sunset. It's usually a sunrise just before I feed my hens. There we go. Look at that. Already coming together. I love a good hillside. Now we're going to jump onto the big boy. You know how much I love this big old brush. So we're going to just dab that, and now we get to really play. Here's my glitter. You know how much I love to use my glitter paint. And I'm just going to mix that here with my green. I've got glitter and green and glitter and green and a little more of that water just to really absorb the paint. And then let's touch in a little bit of brown. Here we go. And we're just going to start to play. Look at that. Now, what I love so much about this brush is you've got this horizontal line. and I'm just creating these beautiful textures using the water. And the water is just going to glide all the way down. I cannot wait for our sunset. I cannot wait, because sunsets are some of the most beautiful things you can look at if you're wearing sunglasses or sunshades. Whatever you wear, look at a sunset. And we're just going to color this right in. And I love that I'm using this interesting texture. Here we go. All the way down. Remember, we don't want that water to catch too far down. So just a dab, just a dab. There we go. Here we go. These hills are just coming in so beautifully. Now, I'm not going to dab my brush too much more in the water because it's already got enough. So we're just going to use the water we already have. And we're just going to come all the way down that mountain. Here we go. And I'm using a little bit of extra brown so you can just create a little bit of shading. I know. I hardly ever wear makeup, but I was giving this a try. And my longtime companion Leon thought, that looks crazy. We'll see. Who knows? Fun with marker. You can use it however you want to, on or off your face, or maybe just on the page. Crayola just gives you all of those options. Here we go. Now one side is completely finished. It looks gorgeous. So now I'm going to go ahead and dab, and we're just going to jump right into the other side. Let's not waste any time and just get right into it. So I've got my green, and I'm really filling the entire brush here. This wonderful majestic green color, and then I've got a little bit of that glitter green, which is really taking to the brush today. Really taking to that brush. And I'm just going to go all the way down. Now I'm doing a mixture of dabbing, but also this vertical stroke. I should say horizontal stroke. This way is horizontal, and this way is vertical. For those of you who may not know, something I have to Google frequently. Here we go. Okay. We are just coming together so nicely. Now what I love is one mountain is going to overtake the other mountain. So I'm just going to draw a little bit of shade, just to indicate, using a little bit of that extra brown. There's so many techniques you can use. And I love that brown because that brown is really creating a sense of depth. Here we go. I love that tinkling music in the background. I hope you've had a chance to tinkle today with music. Here we go. We've got that brown and then back to that green. So playful. And we are dripping a little bit. I'll just catch with my hand, no problem there. And we'll just fill right back in. There we go. Just grab a little bit of extra there. Here we go. A little bit of that extra green, extra brown. Just get rid of that bad boy. And the glitter, you can't see it from there probably, but it is showing through so beautifully. And one thing that's magnificent about the glitter is that once it dries, you can really see all those little flecks and sparkles. And every time you look at them, it just makes you tinkle a little bit, just like this music. Here we go. Got a little bit of brown and a little bit of that green. I'm going to use a little water that I have on my palette here, and we're just going to continue on. I love this side of this brush. We've talked about this before, but it just creates that wonderful texture. You can do this for various kinds of trees. And we're just filling in, and it's creating the most wonderful movement in the mountain. I hope everyone had wonderful holidays. I know I sure did. We used to celebrate Easter in my family, although instead of hiding eggs, we often hid chickens. Turns out chickens are pretty easy to find. Not just because they're so noisy. They really don't like to stay in one place, do they? I don't think they do, little rascals. I hope you all found your chickens or your eggs, whatever you search for. Or maybe you're celebrating Passover. Here we go. We're finishing up this mountain here, and then we're going to jump right into that just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous sunset. Now, for those of you who don't know what a sunset is, that just simply means that your sun is going down as opposed to up. The sunrise means that it's going up. So now I'm going to stay on my wonderful big brush here. We're just going to wet that bad boy down. Really give it a tap. There we go. Let's set that aside for the moment because I have the most wonderful material that I decided I would like to use, and I have a couple of them, and I cannot wait to introduce you to them. So this is called colored pencil. It is in fact a color rather a pencil made of color. So I'm going to start my sunset very, very just vigorously rubbing. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to draw an explicit shape because I want to get the sense that this is a really vibrant sunset. So I'm going to just color in and I'm just going to implicate. Now, one thing you may see about the colored pencil is like a coloring crayon. It's not paint. Very similar. So we're just drawing this very vibrant yellow. And what I might do is even add a few clouds in the background here. You know how much I love clouds, and I love trees. And then I have the most wonderful, this is just wonderful. It's called Laser Lemon. That is the name of this wonderful crayon. And I'm just gonna go back and fill in with just a slightly darker shade of yellow. There we go. So if you've ever seen a sunset, which I have only one time on the Google, it's not pure yellow. I was very wrong, I really thought it was. It's not. There we go. So there's the beginnings of our sunset. And as I said before, I just love underlying a little bit of crayon and a little bit of pencil, and then we're going to go back with our wonderful paint, and we're just going to start to fill everything out. Now I have this extraordinary glitter gold. I just love those words together, glitter and gold. Here we go. So we're going to just start to come in with a little bit of that glittery gold. Boy, this brush is very moist today. And what's kind of nice is we're capturing a little bit, just a little bit, of that sort of color from underneath, which is just exactly what we want. We want a blending situation. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my iridescent yellow, a little bit of that gold. And here we go. Let's jump back in. And we're just expanding this outwards. Here's our sunset. And it's creating a little bit of a blend, which I love. There we go. And now we're going to create a little bit brighter color just over it. Here we go. So these are a little bit of misty type clouds, and that sunset is just going down behind it. Beautiful. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our smaller brush, wherever that bad boy went. Here it is. And we're going to take a little bit of this orangish, I have a wonderful orangish sort of red color. We're going to expand on this sunset because it gets a little bit red as it goes through the sky. So we're going to grab a little bit of that orange, and now we're just going to start to come in and fill in the sides. And I'm doing just a very interesting sort of rapid stroke here. And you can do this so simply at home. It just takes a wrist and a brush. That's all it takes. So we've got this sort of orangey red and then this other red, and we're just going to fill in like that. And that's going to turn in a little bit to our sky. It's almost as if this sun is on fire. How about that? Imagine the sun being on fire. There we go. We're just filling that bad boy in. Just wonderful. And I'm going to even capture a little bit of this yellow. I have some yellow. And just throw right in there again. I'm going to wash it out a little bit because I had a little bit of excess blue from before. Not to worry. Sometimes your paints will capture other colors as well. They just sort of collect them. We're just rinsing it out, and then we're going to come back in with that yellow, and I'm going to blend. Here's our sunset. And what I love so much about this, everyone, is it does have a little bit of an abstract sense. Your sun can be as abstract as you want it to be. There's my sun. And I'm even going to grab a little bit of that yellow, just carry a little bit further out. Look at that. And then we have this wonderful mist. I'm just going to continue to carry all the way out. Isn't this just glorious? Sometimes you start things, you're not totally sure where they're going to go, and then they just kind of take care of themselves. So I'm using the excess that I had on my brush that was creating this lovely mist, and we're just going to go for it. This is so wonderful. We're going to keep at it. Here we go. For those of you joining us, welcome. We have a sunset in the works today. And I'm just using some very interesting stroke patterns because a sunset, kind of like a fish, is just a little bit imagination and a little bit reality. You decide what yours looks like. This is what mine looks like, based on an image I saw. Okay, so we're just finishing up the sunset part. This is just really wonderful. It's just a big old ball of fire, and it's disappearing behind these hills in the background. Wonderful. And now I just want to go back because you might notice that when you blend watercolor sometimes, when you blend it, it tends to kind of sink in a little bit, so we just want to make sure we continue on with that wonderful shading pattern. Here we go. It's just wonderful. Here we go. Okay. I cannot wait to get to the sky. We are going to have so much fun with our sky today. I cannot wait what we have in store for it. We have this wonderful, beautiful hillside, and then we have our beautiful sunset. Great, so let's go ahead and get to that sky because I am just too anxious. So I already have a little bit of water on my palette. I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, and then, oh, what the hey, I've got this terrific kind of iridescent red. And we're just going to start to see what happens. Look at that. What a color. What a color indeed. And I really just didn't have to mix that much, which is so wonderful because I already have a pretty moist brush. I usually do have too moist of a brush, but I tell you what, this couldn't have worked out better. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of that iridescent, a little bit more of this blue, and we're just going to continue to explore and see what comes. Look at that. I would love a little bit more blue, and look at that. I'm going to throw in a little bit of white too. Look at that. Such an interesting color. And we're just sweeping really wonderfully across the page. Now this is something fun. You can always moisten your brush too, and then just grab and paint in. Isn't that nice? You can always do a little bit more blending if you have a little bit more water, which is so much fun with watercolor because it's so flexible. We've talked about that, and I just want to reiterate the flexibility of the watercolor is always my favorite part about it. Here we go. We're just coming right behind. That's wonderful. We're going to pull a little bit more of that color down. So I'm going to find my green, find my blue, and then a little bit more of that red, and we're just going to start to color in. Look at that. Look at that. Wonderful. And this is such an easy technique for people at home. You can take your colors and water them as much as you want. It is completely up to you. Look at that blue sky in the background. I'm going to grab a little bit more water. Really coming together here nicely. So we've got a little bit of blue, and I'm going to grab a little bit more of that red, and just some of that iridescent red, and we're just going to keep on going. There we go. We're just going to keep sweeping. It's such a quick process when you have a larger brush. Here we go. A little bit more blue, a little bit more red, and I already have a little water on. Here we go. And we just keep kind of going across the page. And that red and blue is creating a wonderful sort of purple color, which is what happens to the sky. From what I have read. Here we go. And there's our wonderful sky coming together so nicely. So we have this beautiful sunset, and we have our wonderful mountains, and we have a little bit of crayon here, and I did do some crayon in the sunset, which is showing through so beautifully. Now, I've let my mountains dry just a little bit, and as you all know, I talked about maybe adding, maybe some sheep into my hills. So, I've got my little brush here, and sheep, for those of you who don't know, are a little bit of a gray color. I read about one in a book one time, and I thought, that sounds terrifying. But I've heard they're very gentle creatures. Here we go. So I have a little bit of gray, and we're just going to go right over here and draw on a little sheep. Just an implication. There's one sheep. Look at that. Now, one thing you might want to do, because sometimes this paint doesn't show through quite as well as you may want it to, is you kind of just want to implicate, here's my sheep, and then we'll go back and we'll add some features to the sheep a little later. Here's another sheep. Look at that. A couple of sheeps. Wonderful. I'm really just making them little curly blobs because they are made of wool. Sheeps are made of wool, and sometimes we even wear sheeps on our bodies. So I'm going to create one right over here too. Just a couple of little sheeps there. There's one. And you know what we might do? We might get a little bit crazy and draw some legs on these little suckers. Look at that. Another little sheep. Little sheeps everywhere. I wonder what they're doing out there. Who knows what sheeps do. Here's another one. We're creating a wonderful gray. Now you can create gray. For those of you who don't know, using black, using white. We're just coloring, creating a nice little blob texture. There we go. And there's another sheep. I've got all these sheep over here. I'm going to go ahead and just define this one a little bit more. Here we go. Here's a sheep right there. There we go. And another one, of course. And then, because I feel like there's not just animals, but also more plants. So, of course you all know me, and you know how much I love my trees. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up my watercolor endeavor here with a tree. So here's my tree, straight up and down. Perhaps these sheep like to graze a little bit, and then maybe come and relax under my tree. They can do whatever they want under your tree. You pick. Just creating a beautiful stroke here. Stroking upwards. Of course, you stroke however you want. Now, this one's a pretty big boy today. So, I'm going to add a little bit of that black, and we're just going to kind of create a little bit of shading here. There's my big boy. Right, and maybe a couple of little bushes down here. There's one bush, there's another bush. Maybe that one's a little bit taller. Yes. I love how some of my sheeps already have their legs starting to form. We're going to go back and draw those later. But I want to get in right here. Just a little bit. There we go. Of that sort of brush underneath my big tree. Here we go. And let's go ahead and just capture a little bit more of that brown and continue to stroke it on up. There we go. There's a big boy today. It's going to go right up and almost penetrate that sunset. Maybe these sheep have been fertilizing my tree. Who knows? And you know what? What the heck? How about a nice leafy green tree? Nice big rounded top. It's going to just kind of jump right in front of that sunset. And I'm creating the most wonderful texture with my tree. Looks just beautiful. And I feel like my tree has probably been sheared a little bit. You know what I am interested in seeing in this tree today? Maybe a couple of arms, a couple of branches. So we're going to branch out. And draw one right there. Look at that. And one right here. There we go. We got a couple of little branches here. I love the branches. And you know what? Of course, we have to jump back into our green and create a little bit of green on the outside of the branches. There's one. And there's one running right into that sheep there. Let's just finish off these sheep here. Silly sheep. Just running around doing who knows what. There's one head and maybe a couple little legs. A little leg. What's great is once they dry, you can kind of go back over. This is one thing about watercolor, is you can let it dry and then add more shading to it. It's just such a wonderfully versatile paint. There's another sheep. And let's go back with our black, and we're just going to continue to outline a little bit more our sheep. Here we go. Here we go. There's our sheep again. And there's his little head. And there's his little legs. And his little bumper. And we go again with this one. Here we go. Little head. And there we go. Little bumper, little legs. And one more. Here we go. What a beautiful sunset. Can't imagine what sheep think of a sunset. Who knows what sheep are thinking? They're probably thinking, why is it so hot? Who knows? Coming back over, and I'm just going to shade again. And here are my little sheep, little legs, and they are grazing. That's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that green, and I just kind of want to make these leaves even more textured than they already are. Boy, I love good texture. And we got a couple more there. And how about a little bird in those trees? Why the heck not? I'm wetting my brush. Nice and wet, nice and moist. There we go. And how about a little bird just right here? There's a bird. There's his tail. Little bird. There he goes. Sits right up there. It's so wonderful. I'm going to go back one more time. And this is what's so fun. I'm going to take some of that white, and I've got my bigger brush, and I'm going to blend my sky completely out. Watch this. Look at that. All that blending. Let's just finish this painting right up. A sunset for the ages. And I'm just taking white, and we're working to blend this out a little bit, so I'm just going to dip it in the water that's already on my palette, and we're just going to sweep right across. Right across. There we go. We're just finishing right up here with our sunset. We've got trees, we've got our sheep. That's wonderful. How about one final little detail? One thing we're going to focus more on as we move forward is details. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure my sheep can see whatever they are eating. So I'm going to draw a little eye and a smiley face. Here's an eye, because I'd like my sheep to be happy. And here's another one. And it looks like they're all looking in the same direction. Who knows what's over there? Maybe they see another field to graze in. And there are my sheep, very happy sheep. Look at that. And just like that, we have a painting. We have a beautiful sunset. Let's zoom in and see what we've found today in our sunset. Rigorous color, so much life, sky, mountains, sheep, little bird, and of course, our ever-growing tree, our throbbing, wonderful tree that gives so much life, and of course, our sunset. It really is moving, isn't it? Well, I know what I'll be doing tonight. I'll probably just be standing here and staring at this sunset for the next few hours. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you all so much for joining me on this wonderful Monday. I invite you to play around with marker in however it feels good to you. I will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. for another wonderful episode of Painting at Home. I am Jean Moss. Everyone have such a wonderful Monday.